Okay, hello. We are going to make some cheese. Now, we're going to make some cheddar, which is Britain's most popular cheese. The first is our mesophilic culture. There we go. Lactococcus lactis, which is a little sachet which goes in there, and that starts acidifying the milk, and it also will continue all through the maturing process to add flavour and complexity and just make it good old stuff. So we'll give that a stir, let that rehydrate in there, and leave that alone for about 45 minutes to do its thing. There we go. Now, next stage is rennet, which is what coagulates the cheese. Now, I use these little tablets, half a tablet. You can see there's half of that one gone AWOL. Half a tablet is enough for what I'm doing here. So it's in water, just to dissolve the tablet. That goes in there. Give it a stir. Just make sure it's all nicely worked its way through. Now, that rennet, there's different types of rennet. That comes from a fungal source, so it is vegetarian friendly. You can also get other forms of rennet. Originally, rennet came from calves' stomachs, but that's rare nowadays. The other method of getting rennet is a genetically modified version. Some people have issues with that, so I'm happy with my fungal version. Okay, so here we are, 45 minutes or so later. If you're familiar with, get rid of that. If you're familiar with the old nursery rhyme, Little Miss Muffet sat in her tuffet eating her curds and whey. Now there is your solid curds and the whey is the liquid that's in there, okay? Now, to make cheddar, the next step of the process is to cut the curds into about 2 to 2.5 centimeter blocks, and then give it a stir. And there's a very handy, easy way to do that with a cooling rack. Pop that in there. And that's our curds. Nicely cut. There you go. How easy was that? And we'll give that a bit of a stir just to break those up a little bit. We'll let that rest for 5 minutes. Okay, here we go now. Try to drain off the curds and or separate the curds and whey. So lots of solids there, lots of liquid. So I'll separate that out, and then we start the cheddaring process. Now this sounds terribly grand, and it is unique in the way cheddar is made. No other cheese that I'm aware of does this, and we keep it nice and warm. Once all the majority of the whey is drained off, and I'll filter this out in a second, it goes back into the bottom of the pot. I have a double boiler set up here, so there's a basin which is big enough for the pot to sit in with lots and lots, lots and lots of nice warm water on it to keep the heat in there. Now that will drain. Now if you're a gym bunny and you have all those whey protein shakes, that's your whey in there. Okay, so change of angle. The cheddaring process basically consists of flipping these over just like that. And it loses more liquid as we go. It broke up. Doesn't matter if it breaks up because we're going to break it up further whenever the next step comes along. There we go. Okay, so this has been flipped over several times now. Bring it out onto a chopping board. Don't want to lose the bits. And it starts to look a bit like cheese, but we need to do a couple of more processes. We need to cut it into smaller pieces and then salt it. And then we need to press it. So, a few bits and pieces left in the saucepan here. Right, so the last little bits, or the last job here, is to break this up. Now that we've gone the all effort to get it into this big mass looking like two lungs, we break it up. Okay, and then back to the saucepan again, and it all goes. Just to save washing up, if nothing else, there's no reason to get a separate tray. So, here's our saucepan. Okay, we have that. Now, if this was a big commercial operation, there would be all sorts of big machinery to do this, but we're putting in about a big dessert spoonful of just regular salt, and that gets mixed in. Okay, you can't be afraid about getting your hands mucky doing this. There we are. Okay, pause there. Okay, back to it. This is my mould. Those of you of a industrial reckoning may recognise what that originally was. I'll not go into it because somebody will be offended. So, cheesecloth. This is what I used to sieve it earlier on. That's why there's little bits and pieces going on. Now, this all goes into here. Now, this needs a lot of pressure. So, the initial press will be about a few kilos just. But and eventually we'll work up to about 25 kilos of pressure. No doubt your science teacher will be saying that should be, I don't know, whatever the correct term is, I can't remember. Newtons. So many newtons of force. Yeah, right. So still squishy. You can see there's still a lot of liquid going on here, even though it is quite a crumbly sort of mess going on. All good. Nearly there. One more handful. Oops, get back in there. Now, this little mould, I've used this before, and it's just the right size for 8 litres of milk's worth of curd. So that comes in. Basically wrap it up in a nice little blanket. And then the follower goes on top. Good squeeze. Right, there's holes in this mould which will allow the liquid to run out. My initial squeeze will start to break up those lumps. Get those all in there nicely. Okay, that goes on there. And then I have a nice weight which parks on top, and we'll leave that about 3 hours. It's still in the tray to catch any surplus whey, which will run out. There's holes along the edges of this mould, and after an hour or so we'll flip it and see where we go from there. Okay, here we are. We've lifted the cheese out of the press, and that's it after 18 hours of a good hard press to get any moisture out. It looks a bit like a cheese, so it needs about 3 days now to air dry, and then we'll wax it like an Edam. Pop it in a warm fridge is a strange term, about 10 degrees, which is warmer than a standard fridge. And leave it alone for about 3 months, turning it every so often just to make sure, checking it. But there we go, that's what it looks like now. Okay, here we go. We're early on this because Mrs. Edwards needs her video for you good folks studying the exam. So this is 3 weeks. It should be 3 months, but let's see what we get. There we go. We have a nice white, looks like cheese. Take the wax off the edge, just like you do with Edam or Baby Bell. Tastes like a very mild cheddar. Can't go wrong with that. Okay, a little add on here. This isn't on your syllabus, but the reason we put the wax on the cheddar, now you can shrink wrap it as well if you go into, normally when you buy your cheese in Tesco, it is shrink wrapped in a big block. That is to keep out the mould and to keep in the moisture, keep things stable. So mould is one of those things that can or cannot be great for cheese. Now, if you've ever eaten brie, you will be familiar with this lovely white rind, which is actually the result of Penicillium candidum going on there. It forms a lovely white skin on there, and if you cut it and put it back in the fridge, you will notice that, look there, it heals up again and that mould forms on the outside. Now, this isn't actually brie, this is a another mold going on here. You can see now this is intentional. Is the blue mold, which is Penicillium roqueforti, comes from the Roquefort area of France, where this lovely blue mold, whenever they put the cheese in caves to let it mature, it got infected with this blue mold, which, if you like blue cheese, is absolutely gorgeous. If you don't like blue cheese, you don't like it at all. But personally, I love the stuff. So there you can see the white rind, which is the candidium, and the blue is the roqueforti. But there you go, homemade cheese. It is a thing, and you know, there are more expensive hobbies in the world that give you less pleasure. Enjoy.